The film begins in a town called Mogpo in South Korea, where there was a big commotion at the local market. Some tough guys, who wanted to kick the market traders out, got into a fight with the traders. The person behind this eviction plan was a guy named Mun-soo, who worked for the city. He told his team to hire these tough guys to speed up the process because he wanted to build an amusement park there. The traders who sold their stuff at the market didn't like this idea at all. They protested against the amusement park because they were afraid it would ruin their businesses. They had support from different people, including a lady named Soo-byun, who was a lawyer helping the Mogpo traders. During all the chaos, the big boss of the tough guys, Si-chol, had an argument with Soo-byun. She got really upset and gave him a hard slap. Surprisingly, Si-chol didn't fight back. It was as if he realized that what Soo-byun said was right. Then, when Si-chol saw that Soo-byun was in danger of getting hurt in the commotion, he tried to help her. He even told his gang to stop the clearance. This surprised his gang members, but they followed his orders and left the market. Surprisingly, Si-chol has developed feelings for Soo-byun, even though she often scolds him. 3 months later, Si-chol and his gang returned to the Mogpo market and found Soo-byun with the market traders. Si-chol realized that Soo-byun and the traders were only eating plain bread, so he ordered some tasty food for them. This made Si-chol's gang members a bit annoyed because he was no longer paying much attention to their nightclub business and the clearance of the Mogpo market. He was too focused on his feelings for Soo-byun. The following day, Si-chol went back to Mogpo market with one of his buddies and pretended to be fishing. Soon after, Soo-byun crossed paths with Si-chol and gave him money for the food he bought the day before. She believed that what Si-chol had been doing for the past 3 months was a kind of threat. Si-chol was confused because he hadn't done anything wrong. He decided to take Soo-byun to a restaurant to talk things out. During their conversation, Si-chol opened up about his feelings for Soo-byun. Unfortunately, she didn't feel the same way and saw him as a tough gangster. There, she encouraged him to become a better person and find a good woman. However, Si-chol was already deeply in love with Soo-byun, so he was determined to follow her advice. After meeting Soo-byun, he spoke to his gangster friends about his desire to leave the gang life and find a legitimate job to become a better person. His friends were shocked but couldn't stop him from pursuing his new path. At that time, one of Si-chol's friends suggested that if he wanted to change for the better, he should meet Mr. Bog-yoon, who used to be a gangster but has turned his life around. Mr. Bog-yoon had quit being a gangster, started a restaurant that serves senior citizens, and got involved in helping the community. Coincidentally, there was an upcoming election for the Mogpo City Council, and many people in Mogpo wanted Mr. Bog-yoon to run for the council, replacing Mun-soo, the current official known for his shady dealings. The next day, Si-chol decided to meet Mr. Bog-yoon. Meanwhile, Soo-byun was still trying to stop the clearance of Mogpo market, even though the court had ruled that anyone who tried to blockade it would be fined. Soon after, the media team supporting the market residents approached Soo-byun to expose Mun-soo's crimes. They asked Soo-byun to meet Mr. Bog-yoon to persuade him to run for the Mogpo Council so that Mun-soo wouldn't return to the council. Hearing that, Soo-byun agreed and went to Mr. Bog-yoon's restaurant. Coincidentally, she ran into Si-chol, who was also waiting to see Mr. Bog-yoon. However, she seemed to ignore him. Unfortunately, Mr. Bog-yoon didn't want to get involved in politics and avoided both Soo-byun and the media team. As he walked back home, Soo-byun and Si-chol followed him, hoping to have a serious conversation with him. As time passed, Si-chol kept trying to get close to Mr. Bog-yoon. He often found himself in the same place as Mr. Bog-yoon, especially when Mr. Bog-yoon met with the people at Mogpo Market. Meanwhile, Mr. Bog-yoon started receiving support from influential people who admired his contributions to society. Eventually, Si-chol got a chance to have a serious conversation with him at a restaurant. During their talk, Si-chol expressed his desire to become a better person and do volunteer work, just like Mr. Bog-yoon. But right after he shared his intentions, Si-chol got into a fight with his rival gangster named Kwang-chun. Mr. Bog-yoon saw this and advised Si-chol to stop fighting. The next day, Kwang-chun was angry and beating up one of his guys, Mu-dong, who had been beaten by Si-chol the day before. Kwang-chun really don't like it when his gang members clash with Si-chol, especially when he lost to Si-chol. Meanwhile, Mun-soo and his team were discussing rumors that Mr. Bog-yoon might be their opponent in the upcoming election. However, Mun-soo seemed to underestimate Mr. Bog-yoon and was more focused on completing the amusement park construction, which had faced many obstacles. Surprisingly, Munsu had even bribed the court judge to impose fines on Mogpo residents who opposed the park's construction. In the evening, Mr. Bog-yoon returned to Mogpo Market with Soo-yeon. They noticed that many traders were giving up on opposing the construction of the amusement park due to the court-issued fines. Soo-yeon and the residents once again tried to persuade Mr. Bog-yoon to run for a seat on the Mogpo City Council. However, Mr. Bog-yoon still had doubts, so Soo-yeon continued to plead with him to help the people of Mogpo. Finally, Mr. Bog-yoon agreed to their request. The next day, Mr. Bog-yoon made a public announcement that he would enter the elections, causing a lot of excitement among the people. According to the poll, most residents preferred Mr. Bog-yoon over Munsu. Meanwhile, the ongoing construction of the amusement park was tarnishing Munsu's reputation further. Munsu's advisor Dong-hun suggested that Munsu delay the park's construction until after he was elected as the chairman of the Mogpo City Council. However, the proud Munsu didn't want to postpone the project. Still, he was worried about losing the election, so he approached Kwang-chun and offered a deal. Munsu promised to give Kwang-chun a prime spot on the top floor of the amusement park if he could get rid of Mr. Bog-yoon. Kwang-chun, who was currently facing trouble from Si-cheol's gang, saw Munsu's offer as very tempting because it would give him control over Mogpo and help him defeat Si-cheol's gang. Ultimately, Kwang-chun agreed to the deal. The following day, Si-cheol went back to Mr. Bog-yoon's restaurant to convince him once more that he genuinely wanted to change. However, Mr. Bog-yoon remained skeptical, causing Si-cheol to try even harder to prove himself. Si-cheol stressed that once he made a decision, he was committed to seeing it through. In the evening, Si-cheol continued waiting for Mr. Bog-yoon to finish his work. Finally, Mr. Bog-yoon confirmed that he would participate in the election and compete against Munsu. Meanwhile, Si-cheol, who had been waiting for a long time, got drunk and shared his feelings with Soo-yeon's friends. He expressed his love for Soo-yeon, and her friends encouraged her to accept Si-cheol's love. During karaoke, Si-cheol stole the show by singing a song dedicated to Soo-yeon. Eventually, she began to accept him. The next day, Si-cheol realized that he had spent the night at Mr. Bog-yoon's place. When he woke up, Mr. Bog-yoon asked Si-cheol how serious he was about changing his life and starting over. Si-cheol promised that he would change and vowed not to use violence or harm others. In the end, Mr. Bog-yoon wanted to teach Si-cheol how to become a better person. After some time, Mr. Bog-yoon, along with his restaurant staff and Si-cheol, went to Mogpo Market to collect food ingredients given by the market residents. They intended to use these ingredients to prepare meals for senior citizens at Mr. Bog-yoon's restaurant. At that time, the residents were surprised to see Si-cheol with Mr. Bog-yoon. Later on, Si-cheol and 3 of his friends learned how to cook the dishes on Mr. Bog-yoon's menu. They'd also learned how to serve and assist customers. Si-cheol's journey to becoming a better person started with taking care of Mr. Bog-yoon's restaurant. The following day, Mr. Bog-yoon requested that Si-cheol come to the restaurant without using a private car, so Si-cheol took the bus to arrive on time. During the bus ride, an accident occurred on a bridge. Si-cheol, who had a strong sense of compassion, tried to save all the passengers, including the unconscious bus driver. Unfortunately, when the bus was on the brink of falling into the sea, Si-cheol couldn't save the driver, and they both ended up in the water. Si-cheol's heroic attempt to save the driver was captured on the bus's camera and witnessed by many people. He quickly became a famous figure in Mogpo as the hero of the city. Fortunately, rescue teams arrived, and both Si-cheol and the bus driver survived with minor injuries. Immediately after the incident, Si-cheol rushed to Mr. Bog-yoon's restaurant. On the other hand, Munsu and his team began to feel anxious because Si-cheol's popularity was boosting support for Mr. Bog-yoon. Then, they tried to locate Mr. Bog-yoon but were unsuccessful. Frustrated, Munsu met with Kwang-chun and physically confronted him for not starting their mission. Afterward, Kwang-chun ordered Moo-dong to hire a gangster from Kwangju named Triple Piglet to carry out their mission. In the evening, Si-cheol was at Mr. Bog-yoon's place, trying to fix a broken water tap. He had gone to buy some tools for the repair. After a while, Mr. Bog-yoon and Soo-yeon returned home and asked Si-cheol where he had been. As Mr. Bog-yoon was about to escort Soo-yeon home, Kwang-chun, Moo-dong, and Triple Piglet suddenly appeared and attacked Mr. Bog-yoon. Fortunately, Mr. Bog-yoon had a background in dealing with tough situations, which made it hard for Triple Piglet to harm him. In the chaos, Kwang-chun and Moo-dong got involved. Meanwhile, Soo-yeon, who tried to call the police, also became a target. Thankfully, he returned in time and witnessed the attack. Then he rushed to help Mr. Bog Yoon and protect Soo-yeon. Unfortunately, Kwang Chun managed to injure Mr. Bog Yoon with a stab, while Si-chol got hit by Mook-dong, who was part of Triple Piglet's gang. Due to the stabbing, Mr. Bog Yoon gets serious injuries and had to be taken to the hospital. There, Si-chol asked his fellow gang members and friends to find the person responsible for the attack. They believed that the attack had been ordered by Mun-soo because they had been targeting Mr. Bog Yoon, who was a strong rival of Mun-soo in the elections from the very beginning. What's more, Si-chol's gang members suspected that Kwang Chun's gang might be behind the attack. They thought this because they knew that Kwang Chun and Mun-soo had a connection from the past. Then Si-chol decided to meet with Kwang Chun in his office, and he got really angry because he was sure that Kwang Chun and Mun-soo had conspired to harm Mr. Bog Yoon. Even though Kwang Chun didn't admit it, Si-chol was convinced that the Triple Piglet gang, which had attacked Mr. Bog Yoon, had been ordered by Kwang Chun. Afterward, Si-chol instructed his gang members to reach out to the Brown Bear gang, their friends in Gwangju, to gather information about the Triple Piglet gang, which Kwang Chun was associated with. Then Si-chol returned to visit Mr. Bog Yoon in the hospital. Mr. Bog Yoon explained that his recovery would take 2 months, even though the election was just a few weeks away. Surprisingly, Mr. Bog Yoon, along with Soo-yeon and the campaign team, agreed to replace him with Si-chol as the candidate. At that time, Mr. Bog Yoon believed that Si-chol could defeat Mun-soo and stand up for the people of Mogbo. Mr. Bog Yoon also asked Si-chol to protect all the residents of Mogbo, just like he had done during the bus accident. Even though Si-chol felt unsure about this responsibility, Mr. Bog Yoon had already chosen and believed in him, so Si-chol accepted the role with a strong sense of duty. Unfortunately, on the very first day of Si-chol's campaign, not a single resident of Mogbo showed up to support him. Only his close friends and fellow gang members remained loyal to Si-chol. On the other hand, the switch from Mr. Bog Yoon to Si-chol as the candidate placed Mun-soo in the lead temporarily, while Si-chol found himself at the bottom of the rankings. Many Mogbo residents were disappointed with this change, as they believed Si-chol wasn't a suitable candidate for the election. However, Soo-yeon continued her efforts to gather support for Si-chol. In fact, Soo-yeon even approached candidate number 5 named Ye-jin with a proposal to join forces and combine their party's votes in support of Si-chol. However, Ye-jin remained uncertain about supporting Si-chol. Meanwhile, it turned out that the Triple Piglet gang had fled to the Philippines. Nevertheless, with the assistance of the Brown Bear gang, Si-chol's men managed to locate and capture them. The Brown Bear gang assured Si-chol that they would bring Triple Piglet back to South Korea to hand them over to the police. This turned out to be a significant moment for Si-chol in gaining support from the people of Mogbo. On the other hand, Kwang Chun learned that the Brown Bear gang had captured Triple Piglet, so he quickly contacted Mun-soo, who was out partying. There, Kwang Chun urged Mun-soo to find a way to avoid getting caught by the police. However, Mun-soo refused, seemingly uninterested in solving the problem he had created. This frustrated Kwang Chun, and he insisted that Mun-soo prepare the payment to settle their business. If he refused, Kwang Chun threatened to involve him in the situation. As time passed, support for Si-chol grew, especially from party candidate number 5 Ye-jin. She decided to form an alliance with Si-chol after witnessing his track record of kindness. This development made Mun-soo anxious. Then he instructed Dong-hun to spread false rumors that Si-chol was the one who had stabbed Mr. Bog Yoon. After that, Mun-soo had Dong-hun meet with Kwang Chun to tell his message. Surprisingly, Mun-soo ordered Kwang Chun to surrender, which left Kwang Chun emotional. Shortly after, Kwang Chun contacted Mun-soo again to request the mission payment, but Mun-soo promised to pay him after the election. Sometime later, Mun-soo appeared on a local TV show and revealed Si-chol's past, where he had been involved in a murder during his time as a gangster. At that time, Mun-soo succeeded in tarnishing Si-chol's reputation, causing a public uproar. This revelation greatly angered Soo-yeon because Si-chol had kept this secret from her, and it had serious consequences. When Soo-yeon needed a moment to calm down, she got into her car, but she was unexpectedly kidnapped by Mook-dong and Kwang Chun. Meanwhile, Si-chol was surrounded by journalists seeking to clarify the news. Bravely, Si-chol announced that he would take responsibility for his actions. During the interview, he was asked why he decided to run in the election. Si-chol recalled Soo-yeon's advice about being honest to gain people's trust. In the end, he honestly stated that he entered the election because someone who had changed his life had requested it. After the interview, Si-chol received a call from Kwang-chun, who had kidnapped Soo-yeon. Kwang-chun demanded the release of the triple piglet gang that Si-chol had arrested. If Si-chol refused, Kwang-chun threatened to harm Soo-yeon. Hearing that, Si-chol was furious, and he didn't care about the upcoming election or the long journey he had been through. He was determined to find Kwang-chun and rescue Soo-yeon. Besides that, Si-chol ordered his men to release the captured triple piglets. During this challenging time, Si-chol also recalled a painful memory from 12 years ago, when he and his brother had a major altercation with Kwang-chun's gang. Sadly, his brother had been fatally stabbed by Kwang-chun. Surprisingly, Mun-soo had protected Kwang-chun and ensured his release from prison, which allowed him to manipulate Kwang-chun as needed. In the evening, Kwang-chun was feeling very frustrated because Mun-soo hadn't shown up with the payment, even though Kwang-chun had successfully diverted Si-chol's attention away from the election. Unexpectedly, Mook-dong tricked Kwang-chun, telling him that he would eliminate Mun-soo. However, Mook-dong took Kwang-chun's money and went to a gambling place instead. Meanwhile, Si-chol, who was actively searching for Kwang-chun, finally got a lead by contacting the owner of the gambling place, who happened to be a former colleague. There, Si-chol managed to corner Mook-dong and demanded that he reveal the location where Kwang-chun was hiding and where Soo-yeon was being held. During their journey to the location, Si-chol's gangster friends also informed the police because they didn't want Si-chol to tarnish his reputation further in the eyes of the public. Upon arriving at the scene, Si-chol continued to search in different directions until he finally found Soo-yeon, who was trying to escape from Kwang-chun. At that time, Si-chol was filled with anger and started to attack Kwang-chun, intending to finish him off. Fortunately, his friends and the police intervened, and Kwang-chun was ultimately apprehended. Exhausted, Si-chol was embraced by Soo-yeon. He apologized for arriving late, but Soo-yeon cried, feeling guilty about the situation. On the other hand, Kwang-chun, who was successfully captured by Si-chol, meant that Si-chol was now cleared of all charges and had gained a lot of support from voters. On the other hand, Mun-soo faced karma as news broke that he had masterminded the attack on Mr. Bog-yoon and the murder of the Si-chol brothers 12 years ago. Because of that, Mun-soo lost a significant amount of support due to these revelations. On election day, Si-chol nervously stood before the citizens of Mokpo who supported him. He delivered a heartfelt speech that filled the residents of Mokpo with pride, leading to cheers of support. When the vote count was completed, Si-chol was declared the clear winner, far ahead of Mun-soo and the other candidates. With these results, Si-chol officially became the new Mokpo city councilor. Meanwhile, the defeated Mun-soo appeared frustrated and later drove under the influence of alcohol at night. He was eventually pulled over by the police for a traffic violation and got arrested for threatening and assaulting the police officers, despite the initial traffic violation. In the end, Mun-soo found himself in the same police station as Kwang-chun. In the final scene, Si-chol and Soo-yeon are together. At that moment, he never expected to be in this position as a changed person. Then, Soo-yeon asked why he had transformed after she slapped him. Si-chol explained that his mind had cleared up after her slap. In the end, Si-chol and Soo-yeon officially became a couple. The film ends. The moral lesson from this film is even the toughest gangsters can change, but it might take a slap in the face in a failed election campaign to win the heart of the one they love.